The President and Board of Trustees, roll call, please.
Trustee Lamb.
Here.
Trustee Peck.
Here.
Trustee Rassich. Trustee Benucci.
Here.
Trustee Fay.
Here.
Mayor Collins.
Here. If you can all rise for the pledge, we have Boy Scout Troop 19 presenting the colors.
Color Guard attention. Color Guard, forward march. Color Guard, halt. Color Guard, prepare to post the colors. Please place your right hand over your heart. Color Guard, post the colors. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance. Two, color guard, return to ranks. Color guard, halt. Color guard dismissed. You may be seated.
Very professional, gentlemen. Very professional.
Presidential comments.
We have a preparedness program certification.
Good evening, Mayor Collins, members of the Village Board. My name is Michael D'Amico, and I'm a Regional Planning Coordinator for the Illinois Law Enforcement Alarm System, or ILEAS. What ILEAS does is an agency that manages statewide law enforcement mutual aid assets for the entire state of Illinois. In addition to that, we do a variety of other kinds of things and have other initiatives, and one of them is which is called our Agency Preparedness Program. And what that does is it helps law enforcement agencies become prepared to deal with emergencies of any kind that could potentially occur in their community. It takes a look at a variety of different kinds of things that are critical areas of emergency preparedness. It takes a look at interoperable communications. It looks at training of critical incident management for law enforcement supervisors. It looks at creating staging areas where assets can be brought into your community and then distributed to where they're needed. It takes a look at those kinds of things that are critically important to managing emergencies. And one of those things that your department has done is successfully completed our agency preparedness program. I think that there is something that's noteworthy to mention is that of all the law enforcement agencies in Illinois, as of today, there are only 30 that have successfully completed our program. There are another 270 or so that are in various stages of completion, but only 30 that have successfully completed our agency preparedness certification, and your Plainfield Police Department certainly is one of those 30. I think that speaks volumes for the proactive and progressive approach that your police department has under the leadership of Chief Konopek and his staff. And I am in law enforcement agencies all over the state, and I do see varieties of different kinds of levels of preparedness, and certainly your department is very, very well prepared. So it certainly is my pleasure on behalf of our director, Jim Page, to present our agency preparedness program certification to the Plainfield Police Department. So Mayor Collins, I guess I would present this to you.
Well, here,
You want to do it over here?
Chief. Give this to the chief. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Here you go. You're running out of room in your trophy case, sir. Okay.
Trustees' comments?
Chief, that is well-deserved. I will not reiterate what the director said, but very well-deserved, I'm sure.
I'd like to make a comment I made last week. We have Chief here now, and the fire department's here as well. We're seeing a huge number of trains carrying crude oil and other highly flammable solvents. And one of the things I suggested last week was that we have a rehearsal, if you will, of a hazmat type event, if you will, to make sure that we're prepared to handle it. And one of the biggest problems I understand is alcohol. If you're moving ethyl alcohol around, it's highly flammable, even more than the water. But the new building that we're talking about approving for the fire department, maybe we can do some things there that will give us practice and give us assurance that we know how to handle these events if we unfortunately ever have one here. So
The fire department's actually in the process of putting together a hazmat drill for later this spring, early summer. I don't know if it's particularly associated with train traffic, but they are looking to put on a hazmat drill here in town to deal with the different type of chemicals that may pass through town and things like that.
okay, good, thank you.
Chief, I'd just like to acknowledge as well the good work of your leadership in the police department with ILEAS. That's a very important distinction. We thank you very much for that. And thanks to our scouts being here this evening. And we hope you come and see us at a lot of other meetings besides just when you're presenting the colors. Thank you.
Are there any other trustee comments? This would be the time for public comments. Please come to the podium and state your name for the record.
My name is Mark Chamura. I live in the Champion Creek subdivision. I have 2 items under public comment for your consideration, and the first one has to deal with public comment. With the public comment policy being voted in on February 2nd, I corresponded today with the village clerk inquiring how a member of the public is able to speak on items specific to the agenda. And the response was, you can speak during the public comment section of the agenda unless it is a public hearing, and then the chair will ask for public comments at the appropriate time. I strongly encourage the board to rethink and revisit the public comment policy, because I think comments to a specific agenda item are best suited when that agenda item is called. The second part that I have to speak on is later on in the agenda, and by that time I just hope that the points I make now are still in the trustee's mind when that item gets called. The second item I have to speak on is under item L as in Lincoln, the second item, police chief's report. It is the lease agreement with Tri-River Police Training Region, Inc. I think it's a great item. I think it's a great repurpose of vacant space in the police department building, and I see that it's truly can be an asset both locally and to local law enforcement. In reviewing the lease agreement, I have 4 different points that I wish to bring up. The first one is on page 2 under item 3, the section says rent. In the first sentence it says the landlord shall pay rent. I believe that's a typo, or at least I'm confident or hopeful it's a typo, that it should actually read the tenant shall pay rent. Item 2 is under page 4, item 9. And that regard to use, alteration, and title to the improvement. It's a very good clause, but I feel that there should be language added to that, ensuring that the tenant, if they should build out or remodel the vacant space, there should be some coverage by the village to where the tenant is responsible for all permits, fees, licensing, plan review, and inspections that goes along with such a build-out. Because I feel that if you do enough significant changes to a vacant space that could affect under the life safety code, building code, or local building ordinance, to where electrical outlets possibly need to be added, fire sprinklers need to be modified, or means of egress can be interrupted. So I want to make sure that the village is covered, that the tenant is responsible for all of those charges and responsibilities. The next item is on page 8, item 17, under notifications. The list of addresses, specifically on page 8, the first one is Village of Plainfield, Chief of Police. The third one is Tri-River Police Training, Attention Executive Director. The middle one, Village of Plainfield, Attention Brian Murphy. With it being a 5-year lease, if Mr. Murphy decides to go on to greener pastures, I think that language should be changed to village administrator, just to make sure that the document stays true and accurate. The last item I wish to bring up, and I'm also confident the village has considered it, is that the police department is currently zoned I-2. And under the zoning ordinances under I-2, it does not cover educational facilities under permitted use or special use. I don't know if this type of agreement with this type of organization comes into a factor in regards to those zoning requirements, and I'm sure that the village will address it or has addressed it already. Thank you very much.
Are there any other public comments? Not, then we'll proceed with the business meeting. We're seeking a motion to approve the agenda.
So move.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the agenda. Trustee Lamb?
Yes.
Trustee Peck?
Yes.
Trustee Benucci?
Yes.
Trustee Fay?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries. We're seeking motion to approve the consent agenda to include minutes of the board meeting held on February 2nd, bills paid and bills payable reports for March 2nd, cash and investments, revenue and expenditure reports for January, approval of the annual maintenance contracts for LiveScan digital fingerprinting system with Morpho Trust USA in the amount of $6,175, and approval of the annual maintenance contract for the outdoor warning siren system with Fulton Technology Sirens in the amount of $6,775.68.
That is my motion.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve items A through E under the consent agenda. Trustee Lamb?
Yes.
Trustee Peck?
Yes.
Trustee Benucci?
Yes.
Trustee Fay?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries. Next item on the agenda is Crash Champions. We're seeking board consideration of a motion to adopt ordinance number 3205, authorizing the issuance of a special use permit to construct an auto body shop on the property located at 14022 South Route 59.
So move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Are there any comments or questions on this item? Hearing none, I'll proceed with the roll. Trustee Lamb?
Yes.
Trustee Peck?
Yes.
Trustee Benucci?
Yes.
Trustee Fay?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries. We're seeking board consideration of a motion to adopt ordinance number 3206, allowing a variance from section 700.0A1 of the village's stormwater drainage and detention ordinance for the Crash Champions located at 14022 South Route 59.
So move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Are there any comments or questions on this item?
I have one comment, knowing that my concern for flooding and wastewater or stormwater runoff. Michael or John, can you just give us a brief summary of the plans for this site for water removal? And if you're Derek is fine.
Yeah, stormwater is being detained on the site, and the developer's engineer has provided calculations to show that the release rate of that stormwater will be less than it is actually currently because of the detention.
And the impervious paving that's going on?
Yeah, there will be an increase in impervious pavement, obviously, on the area, but it's all being detained to keep that release rate, so we're not adding any more flow downstream than we were previously.
And where will that empty?
2 locations, Route 59 to the state storm sewer system, and also to the Hazel Crest storm sewer system.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions? Not, the motion was made and seconded to adopt ordinance number 3206, allowing a variance in stormwater for Crash Champions. Trustee Lamb?
Yes.
Trustee Peck?
Yes.
Trustee Benucci?
Yes.
Trustee Fay?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries. Next item on the agenda is Icon 5K Run. We're seeking board consideration of a motion to authorize the road closures as identified in the staff report for the Icon 5K Run to be held on Saturday, April 25th at 9 a.m.
That is my motion.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Are there any comments or questions on this item? Hearing none, I'll proceed with the roll. Trustee Lamb?
Yes.
Trustee Peck?
Yes.
Trustee Benucci?
Yes.
Trustee Fay?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries. Next item on the agenda is 2015 Cruise Nights. We're seeking board consideration of a motion to authorize the road closures as identified in the staff report from Tuesday, May 26th through Tuesday, September 1st for cruise nights.
So move.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded. Are there any comments or questions on this item?
I have one comment. I've noticed in recent years that several cars arrive late and leave early, causing quite a hazard or potential hazard for pedestrians that are visiting downtown. I would like to see some provision through the chamber or the village or both, tightening that up a little bit, because there's little kids that are darting around the street, and there's 2 or 3 cars coming in at 6:15 or 6:30, and maybe leaving at 7:30 or 8. Chief, if you want to respond.
We can work with the chamber on that specific issue. One thing we've worked with the chamber to change this year is I think what possibly led to some of that problem is in the previous years you had cars coming from every direction to try to get down there. Starting this year, they're only going to be able to enter and exit in one direction. They're going to have to enter from the east side off of Illinois Street, and they're going to be able to exit on the west end down near James Street. So we can address that specific issue as far as the time they come and go, but I think changing the traffic flow will help significantly in that area as well.
Thank you.
And Commander Ruggles stays on top of this pretty well.
Are there any other comments or questions? Not. The motion was made and seconded to authorize the road closures as identified in the staff report for the 2015 cruise nights. Trustee Lamb? Yes. Trustee Peck? Yes. Trustee Benucci?
Yes.
Trustee Fay? Yes. Thank you. That motion carries. Next item on the agenda is 2015 Plainfield Fest. We're seeking board consideration of a motion to authorize the road closures as identified in the staff report from Friday, July 17th through Sunday, July 19th for Plainfield Fest.
So move.
Motion's been made and seconded. Are there any comments or questions on this item? Hearing none, I'll proceed with the roll. Trustee Fay?
Yes.
Trustee Lamb? Yes. Trustee Peck?
Yes.
Trustee Benucci?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries. Next item on the agenda is Warehouse 109. We're seeking board consideration of a motion to adopt ordinance number 3207, a special use ordinance for a Warehouse 109 for recreational/private club located on Center Street.
So move.
Motion's been made and seconded.
Possibly the applicant. Trustee Benucci and I both had mentioned we wanted some sort of a clarification on what exactly an event is. For example, I believe the applicant had mentioned that they would entertain the idea of maybe having like a Christmas party or holiday party for one of our local businesses, let's say at 3 in the afternoon. And we wanted to have better clarification on what an event was because we were looking at limiting the amount of events they had. Can staff summarize how that progressed and if the applicant is in agreement with the result of that and how we move forward with that direction for staff?
So thanks for raising the question in terms of the potential for limiting the number of events that are held. I think if we tackle that question first, maybe the definition of what an event is could potentially become moot. I know the project was reviewed by before the Plan Commission in January, and there were a number of residents who came out and expressed some opinions and some concerns about the project. Many of those concerns were addressed by clarifying the nature of the parking, the timing of the parking. I think that really centered on quite a bit of the concern. So staff and the Plan Commission had proposed a handful of stipulations to address and mitigate potential concerns. That would include closing, a limitation that all events would close by midnight, that there would be no live music outdoors, and if there were to be live music indoors, the overhead doors and any openings would need to be closed. There was also a proposed limitation on the number of events, and the intent was to limit the impact to the neighborhood. However, it's staff's belief that the additional stipulations really address that mitigation and address the impact, and so staff is proposing, and I know the applicant is here to address the issue as well, to raise the question before the board: is the limitation on the number of events necessary? And I think staff would be comfortable eliminating that restriction, given there are a handful of other limitations on the hours, making sure the the openings are closed, recognizing that there wouldn't be a parking conflict. So per the board's direction on that, if it's still the board's intent to limit the number of events, then perhaps we could get a little bit more detailed into what exactly constitutes an event.
Okay, you answered my questions. Does the applicant have any comments? I'm assuming you have no objections to us eliminating the number of events.
I apologize, I really couldn't hear what the recommendation was. Well, are we eliminating the amount of events? I agree with that.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, I think the stipulations in the ordinance really covered, as you indicated. And the limitation of things shows up in the, kind of a letter from them to us. The ordinance does not stipulate those number of events, and I agree, I support that, either eliminate that. It's unnecessary because you're really taking care of the issues that are important to the nearby residents, by controlling the noise, by looking at the parking, and part of the neighborhood is railroad track, so it's, I think, a good move to eliminate those.
Sir, if you could identify yourself for the crowd and people at home,
My name
please.
is Clayton Olson.
Are there any other comments or questions? Not, the motion was made and seconded to adopt ordinance number 3207, a special use ordinance for Warehouse 109 for a recreational/private club located on Center Street. Trustee Fay?
Yes.
Trustee Lamb?
Yes.
Trustee Peck?
Yes.
Trustee Benucci?
Yes.
Thank you, that motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is Somerset at Grant Park. We're seeking a motion to open the continued public hearing on a proposed annexation agreement amendment to the Grant Park annexation agreement.
So move.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, that motion carries.
Hi, Mark Chimura, Champion Creek Subdivision. A lot of Plainfield has a lot of pockets in subdivisions that are already started that this type of development is going to come forward with. And one of my key concerns has always been to make sure that the residents that are currently there are protected with some of the new proposed design requirements, and to make sure that there is not a lesser quality product being put into there that would hurt the current residents' real estate values if they go to resell. I had a number of questions, and I corresponded with the petitioner's attorney, and I got answers back, and they're very good answers, that this proposal will either, it meets the village's requirements under their new designs, and it actually exceeds the covenants that was passed with the annexation agreement with the rest of Grand Park subdivision. And it's a very good project. It's, again, a very good repurpose of an area that is now sitting empty and vacant, and I encourage the board to support this. Thank you.
Certainly. So the request that's before the board tonight is, excuse me, approval of an amendment to the original Grand Park annexation agreement that would allow for converting approximately 92 units that were originally approved for townhomes to be replatted as 42 single-family homes. So this is the area that is generally the southwest corner of Ridge Road and 127th Street. So the applicant has come before the Plan Commission for recommendation of approval, received that unanimous recommendation of approval. There's a draft of the changes to the annexation agreement before the board tonight, and the primary focus from staff's point of view has been on the architectural elevations for the new single-family homes. So staff has worked extensively with the applicant for the past several months, and staff submits that the elevations as proposed do comply with the village's design guidelines, and would be comfortable seeking a recommendation for approval from the board. So the staff's position is, if the board is comfortable with the elevations, all of the other documents in terms of the annexation agreement and so forth are consistent with the village's policies and codes. That's a very, very brief overview.
This is a public hearing. This would be time for public comments. If there are no public comments, we're seeking motion to close the public hearing and return to the regular business meeting.
That is my motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. Any comments or questions from the board?
I'd like to make one comment. In reference to the situation which has happened in several subdivisions where it isn't finished being built out, another builder comes in. There's different situations. Sometimes the houses aren't at the same price point that the original buyers have been in there. I would like to just say that the village has taken great strides in trying to work with developers. There's sometimes that are beyond our legal ability to change any of that based on whatever the annexation agreements are, the timing of it, and other criteria. Staff has worked very hard to make sure that they work with the different developers to try to make it as cohesive as possible. So I just wanted to make that comment since Mr. Chimera brought that up about unfinished subdivisions and where that may or may not be. So we have been working on this for, I'd say, probably a couple of years, even when Trustee Rippey was here. So we visited several homeowners. So thank you.
Yeah, it sets a precedent. The standards we created and have people come in and support them, I think, creates a level playing field for all developers. It's going to make a big difference in the playing field in the long run. So, we're on the right track and appreciate the developer working with you all to get the designs to look very nice.
Are there any other comments or questions? We'd be seeking, what am I seeking?
See.
I'm seeking board consideration of a motion to direct the village attorney to draft an ordinance approving the annexation amendment agreement for Somerset at Grand Park, subject to any modifications by the village board.
So move.
Motion's been made and second. Trustee Fay?
Yes.
Trustee Lamb?
Yes.
Trustee Peck?
Yes.
Trustee Benucci?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries. We're seeking board consideration of a motion to approve the final plat for 42 single-family homes at Somerset at Grand Park.
So move.
Motion's been made and seconded. Are there any comments or questions? Hearing none, I'll proceed with the roll. Trustee Fay?
Yes.
Trustee Lamb? Trustee Peck?
Yes.
Trustee Benucci?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries. Next item on the,
Before we move forward, can I just ask a quick question, John? Do we have any report back from the Latter-day Saints who were approved to build in that same region?
I do not know the status of their current plans, but I can follow up with the board.
Thank you.
next item on the agenda is Plainfield Fire Protection District training structures. We're seeking board consideration of a motion to approve the site plan review for 2 training structures for the Plainfield Fire Protection District Administration and Training Campus at 23752 West 135th Street, subject to the stipulations noted in the staff report.
So move.
Motion's been made and seconded. Are there any comments or questions? Hearing none, I'll proceed with the roll. Trustee Fay?
Yes.
Trustee Lamb? Trustee Peck?
Yes.
Trustee Benucci?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries. Next item on the agenda is Opera House Edition. We're seeking board consideration of a motion to approve a certificate of appropriateness for the Opera House Edition located at the corner of Lockport Street and Illinois Street.
So move.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded. Are there any comments or questions? Hearing none, I'll proceed with...
Questions? Yeah, the certificate of appropriateness is very comprehensive, if you will. And I'm just curious as to whether most of this was in your hands, or did you get a lot of support from the Historic Preservation Commission and the staff to work on that document? Because it's really extremely well done, a lot of details and step by step what you're going to do every place in there. So,
yes, I worked with the Illinois Historic Association to do that document, and I had some direction from them. The document itself I wrote.
extremely well done, though. And I remember going through, before you started doing any of the renovations, I still got those pictures. It's going to be a major, major change and improvement to get back to what it should be. So thank you for all your efforts on that.
We still need identification though, sir, even though Most of us know
All right.
who you are. Your name?
Say
Your
your
name,
I'm
sir.
sorry. Yeah, Bill Habiger, I'm the developer.
Mr. Habiger, I just want to offer my thanks to you for always providing the village with high-quality work,
Thanks.
high-quality development.
Are there any other comments or questions? Not, the motion was made and seconded to approve a certificate of appropriateness for the Opera House addition. Trustee Fay?
Yes.
Trustee Lamb?
Yes.
Trustee Peck? Trustee Benucci?
Yes.
Thank you, that motion carries. We're seeking board consideration of a motion to approve the site plan for the Opera House addition.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Are there any comments or questions?
65 additional spaces are going to be provided by a neighbor at the Heritage Center, correct? Okay. Question, Mr. Habiger, are you familiar with the Heritage Center and the parking use that's currently there now?
Yes.
Can you please answer for me, these 65 spaces, are these the same ones that the Plainfield Park District uses for their preschool program?
That is correct.
Okay, so if I understand this correctly, I'm being asked to vote tonight on approving parking for an establishment that has a liquor license to provide parking where individuals may be leaving an establishment where they consume alcohol and using a parking lot where children are running out to get in the cars with their parents when they get picked up at the end of the day. I believe there's 4 to 5 days of programming used by the park district at that facility. So I have a safety concern about using 65 parking spaces in the same lot where, there's a building that's being used for a preschool. So maybe I'm incorrect here, but that's the way I understand this.
Now, well, first of all, the majority of our parking will be required after 5 o'clock in the afternoon, so it won't be during the day. And secondly, the parking arrangement we have is they will use the parking that they have plus the parking on the east side of the building, then I can use the parking directly across from my building. So there won't be any, they'll actually have a different path through there than what my people will be using.
Without seeing this actually like drawn out, or I'm having trouble with this. So you're saying that individuals that are using this building for preschool are not going to be in the same parking lot as possible patrons of a proposed restaurant with a liquor license?
No, they won't be. They shouldn't be. I'll put it like this. We may have to have some improvement in signage or something like that. But if it's done properly, the Opera House will use the drive-through, or I'm sorry, will use the parking lot directly across. It has no access into the area that the Park District uses. The Park District comes in off of Illinois Street, and they can exit under the old bank enclosure, which we won't be using.
That actually makes sense. I guess at this point, I would be more comfortable seeing a letter of no objection from the Park District and something in writing to what you just articulated verbally before I would support this. But there's several other members on the board that can vote yes tonight, and this may as well go through. But that's where my no would turn into a yes. Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor? May I offer just some brief information just for clarification on the parking? Because I know we don't have a lot of new construction in downtown, but just for clarification, any new development in downtown is allowed to count parking spaces that are either on-street or off-street parking spaces in publicly owned parking lots. So there is sufficient parking to meet the required parking on-street and in adjacent publicly owned lots. The 65 spaces that are referenced here are really just surplus. They're additional to give, whether it's the owner, the operator, a level of comfort that there's sufficient parking. But at least with respect to what's required parking, there is sufficient required parking on street within the downtown parking zone.
I'd just like to make a comment too. When Front Street Cantina approached the board years ago to come on to for their licensure, there was a question about the parking. So I took it upon myself and drove around for a block and a half around the Village Green and such. And as we all know, if you go to Naperville or many of these other towns, you might have to walk a little bit to go to a nice restaurant. With the history Mr. Habiker's got with the improvements of this building, I cannot but think that it's not going to be a very upstanding restaurant. Anyway, there was 188 spots within a block and a half. So the parking hasn't changed since then. So, and this is to the west of his establishment. So if he has extra parking there, I think that's more than adequate for parking in that, for this building.
Mr. Mayor, just a point of clarification, you mentioned parking west of, are you referring to parking west of the Heritage Center? Or where exactly are you referring to when you say west? I believe west of the Heritage Center is bank-owned.
West would be behind the Methodist Church all the way past the Village Green.
Okay. You're referencing the cantina versus
Yes.
this. Okay, now I'm on the same page with you. Thank you.
The parking lot north of the library is included, right?
Correct.
Half a block away.
We made improvements to the library parking lot. We also added spaces on the Des Plaines parking lot as well in the last couple of years.
Are there any other comments or questions? Not, the motion was made and seconded to approve the site plan for the Opera House addition. Trustee Fay?
Yes.
Trustee Lamb?
Yes.
Trustee Peck?
No.
Trustee Benucci?
Yes.
Mayor Collins?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Thank you.
Administrators report?
None tonight.
Management Services report?
No report.
Engineers report?
No report.
Planning Department report?
No report.
Building Department report?
We just have the newly designed monthly report for January. Be happy to answer any questions.
I just want to reiterate what Trustee Rassich points out so frequently, that considering back in 2005, this village permitted 1,449 homes before the great economic tank. So for me to see the numbers slowly coming up over the past several years is very encouraging, and I can see through driving in the community and riding in the community that there are many new homes going up, so it's a very positive trend.
You.
Public Works report?
Yeah, thank you. The first three items that I have are actually very familiar to the board here because we've been talking about them as part of the budget discussion. And the engineering division, which is behind me here, Mr. Jess and Mr. Threewitt, have been working very diligently on the program for this coming spring and summer. One of the big projects that's coming up is 135th Street pedestrian crossing across the EJ&E tracks. This has been on our radar for some time, but we're glad to see that we're finally here at the finish line. We did receive the ICC order, which allows us to construct the path and allows the CN to install the crossing improvements at that location. We did open and receive sealed bids. We received 4 bids. Davis Concrete came in at as the low bidder. The engineer's estimate was a little over $192,000. Davis came in at $140,000, so significantly lower than the engineer's estimate. And I'd like to point out just quickly that the entire project is estimated at a cost of $280,000. There will be a grant of approximately $114,000 that will be provided to the village for this improvement, leaving a net $68,000 that the village will have to pay out of our own pocket for this. And this is a greatly needed improvement identified in the strategic plan, and we're glad that it's moving forward. The pathway improvements, and also Trustee Lamb has asked about the deficiency at this location. The delineators will be replaced with a barrier median, which is in actuality a curb/median. Down the center line, the delineators will be removed, and that's the deficiency that we were waiting for to submit the full report for the quiet zone update for that area. So there is an additional improvement above and beyond the pedestrian crossing, but the pedestrian crossing is the main safety improvement for this location. So I'll be happy to answer any questions, but we're seeking approval of the low bidder, Davis Concrete.
I move we authorize the village president to award the 135th Street pedestrian crossing safety improvements to Davis Concrete in the amount of $140,629.38.
Second.
One quick comment on number 49 on the bidding. Railroad protective liability insurance seems to be quite the disparity from the other bidders for liability insurance.
Yeah, the insurance requirements for this are probably higher than any other project that we have had, and it's pretty typical for the insurance, or for the railroad to do that, depending on who they receive their insurance from, as long as they meet all the requirements. There are some differences, but you know, the engineer's estimate, I think, without looking directly at it, I believe it was about $15,000, and they did vary from company to company, but we'll make sure that they have all the documents in order for that.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions? Not the motion was made and seconded to award the 135th Street pedestrian crossing safety improvements to Davis Concrete as identified. Trustee Fay?
Yes.
Trustee Lamb?
Yes.
Trustee Peck?
Yes.
Trustee Benucci?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Second item that I have is a project that we've been looking forward to and planning for the past year or so, is a refresh of the downtown. And as the board and the public are well aware, there's certain areas, concrete and some curbing work that has deteriorated a little bit, and the idea is to not only get the concrete replaced to where the downtown looks similar to the way that it did when it was new as far as the improvements, but also after that to do a complete cleaning and resetting of the pavers downtown to really freshen up, and we're calling it the Lockport Street Refresh downtown, to have that work completed. So we did go out for bid. We actually received 8 proposals, 8 sealed bids for this work. The work includes the removal and replacement of approximately 5,000 square feet of concrete. Most of this is colored concrete, so there's some special work that has to go into that, and some expertise in that too as well. There's over 300 feet of curb removal and replacement that will be completed as part of this project. The engineer's estimate was $138,000, just over that. The low bidder, Austin Tyler, came in at $135,000, and if the board will recall, Austin Tyler was a contractor that completed the library/village parking lot improvements, and they completed it in a timely fashion, and the quality was very good. So we have a high confidence level in Austin Tyler. So I'd be happy to answer any questions related to that, but staff's recommending approval to Austin Tyler at $135,234.
That is my motion.
Second?
Motion was made and seconded. Trustee Fay?
Yes.
Trustee Lamb?
Yes.
Trustee Peck? Trustee Benucci?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries.
For the public's benefit, the work is to start no sooner than St. Patrick's Day weekend. So in between St. Patrick's Day and the first cruise night, we should have all the concrete work completed by that time. The next item that I have is related to the water system controls. As we had mentioned as part of the budget process earlier last year, and even this year, we talked a little bit about it. There are several locations, and actually 10 locations, that require an upgrade related to the water system. And Mr. Stofko and Mr. Threewitt have done a great job in bringing this together. When I had talked to Mr. Stofko about this, I said that, well, the Public Works building is 10 years old, and that the equipment that we installed over at Public Works should be about 10 years old, and he corrected me, that we had actually brought the SCADA equipment over from the Mill Street location, so that equipment is approximately 15 years old. Although it's very hardy, it's military grade, we call them PLC, programmable logic controllers, but the time has come where they don't make this particular controller or the modems that communicate between the different controllers. So it is time to have these things replaced. You'll see that the Lake Water Station is not on the list because it's pretty well up to date, and we have several other facilities that are up to date. But the SCADA workstation, we have a picture of Dan Bierman here in front of the computer. And actually, there's a big box that's not in the picture that the computer is going to be replaced, but that's only a minor item. The programmable logic controller is going to be replaced at that location. Well number 5, as well as the tower at that location, Tower 2, Tower 1, the booster station, Well 6, the Grand Park Tower, and then at Tuttle Creek, we have a PRV valve, which actually maintains a higher pressure within the Walker's Grove and Nature's Crossing subdivisions. That equipment will be replaced too as well. With that, we did receive 4 bids, and we were a little surprised at the totals, and I'll be happy to answer any questions about this too as well. The engineer's estimate for the job was a little over $100,000. I don't have that in front of me, but it was a little over $100,000. The bids ranged from a high of $109,750 to a low of $50,000 even. Now, within the bid, it's very specific as to the equipment that needs to be installed. There are no variations into the equipment or the programming as well. Automatic controls, we had the opportunity, they're out in Naperville, to talk to them a little bit about their bid, of course, because it's significantly lower than the engineer's estimate, and make sure that they are comfortable with their bid, that they didn't miss anything in the bid, because of course we wouldn't want to get hit with a change order or some surprise. They had informed us that they were confident with the bid. Mr. Stofko had contacted a list of individuals that have recently worked with automatic control services, and I'll just go through the brief list. Within Niles, the Niles Water System, the Brookfield Riverside Water Commission, the Deerfield Public Works Department, and Burr Ridge all recently had equipment upgrades completed by automatic controls, and at each location they gave glowing reviews, not only to the installation but also to the maintenance of the ongoing maintenance of the system. So here we have some larger facilities that seem to be very happy with the performance of this particular contractor. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions, but we're happy to see the bid come in at the level that it did, and we are recommending approval of automatic controls at $50,000.
Second. We specified equipment that's equally hardy to the stuff we had before, or?
Yes, it's the next generation. The Modacoms, they don't make anymore. The Allen Bradleys are the new standard. They've been around for a while, but this is the newest model and the newest program too as well.
Great, thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions? Not. The motion was made and seconded to award the Water System Control Upgrade Project to Automatic Control Services, the low bidder, in the amount of $50,000. Trustee Fay?
Yes.
Trustee Lamb?
Yes.
Trustee Peck? Trustee Benucci?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Last item that I have is just a housekeeping item. As the board is aware, earlier this month, the village experienced a blizzard here in town. Through Public Works and through communications with the mayor and trustees, the village did call out 4 additional contractors and also purchased additional de-icing chemicals as part of this work too as well. The amounts for the contractors in total exceed what staff can authorize. So as per the financial policies that we have in place, it's staff's obligation to notify the board as to when the emergency occurs and how we are addressing that as a collective group, and then at a future board meeting to recommend approval of these invoices. So I'll be happy to answer any questions about the invoices, but they're listed within the within the request.
Al, I have one question, and it pertains to your report. Second paragraph of your report, background findings, reads, significant amount of de-icing chemicals were utilized during this event. The cost to replenish our storage tanks also exceeded staff's purchasing authority. Can you explain that?
Yes.
What storage tanks?
Yes. We actually have a large fiberglass tank, and we have some other tanks too as well, tanks on the trucks themselves, but a large fiberglass tank where we store this de-icing chemical, and it's mainly calcium chloride. It used to be beet juice, but now it's beet molasses. Actually works better. It helps activate the salt, and it helps the salt respond better at lower temperatures. So it's approximately 5,000 gallons that we had purchased, and it was just over the amount that we could authorize.
Thank you.
I know we traditionally keep very good records. This was a rather unusual event, and my suggestion is that we take a look at the total cost of this particular event from materials we put down, all the people who we had to contract to get it cleaned up, the amount of time the Public Works put in and so on, to just kind of get an idea what a single event impact can have on our budget. Ordinarily I wouldn't request that, but this is such an unusual one that had so many problems. I'd like to see maybe put that together and file it away for future information.
Most certainly do that, yes.
Are there any other comments or questions? Not, we're seeking board consideration of a motion to authorize payment to additional contractors for emergency snow removal and de-icing services provided for the February blizzards as identified.
So move.
Second.
The motion's been made and seconded. Trustee Fay?
Yes.
Trustee Lamb?
Yes.
Trustee Peck? Yes. Trustee Benucci?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Glad, thank you.
Police Chief's report.
Thank you. The first item I have on the agenda is seeking board's approval to purchase a replacement vehicle for our community service officers. We currently have a Chevy Blazer, 2001 Chevy Blazer, that we inherited from the village in 2009. The vehicle's actually a 2001, and it's approaching 100,000 miles, and it's in need of several $1,000s in repair to keep the vehicle running. We did budget for a new vehicle this year. We went out and got quotes for 3 Ford Escapes, one from Ron Tirapelli in Shorewood, one from Rod Baker here in Plainfield, and from Fair Oaks Ford in Naperville. And although the Rod Baker quote came in slightly less than $300 higher than Ron Tirapelli at $19,377, in an effort to keep our business local, we would recommend to the board that we approve for the purchase of the Ford Escape from Rod Baker Ford in the amount of $19,377.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Trustee Fay?
Yes.
Trustee Lamb?
Yes.
Trustee Peck? Trustee Benucci?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Chief, before you move on, can I ask one question? Would Pima be able to utilize that vehicle?
We will check into it, but as mentioned in the report, it is having some mechanical issues. We will take one more look at it, though, but I'm thinking it's probably towards the end of its usable life. The next item on the agenda is the seeking authorization for the village president to execute a lease agreement with Tri-River Police Training Region. Tri-River Police Training is our regional training group that puts on training for law enforcement agencies throughout Will, Grundy, Kendall, Kankakee counties. Currently, they're housed in a office in the Crest Hill area, and they were seeking a new venue. With Westcott moving out last year, the opportunity presented itself that would fit perfectly with them moving in. They're going to need to make very minimal modifications. Most of them we actually made because of the some of the things Westcott left behind as far as painting the walls and things like that. But as far as modifications, it's going to be minimal to none. And they are looking to pay in the amount of $2,000 per month rent for $24,000 total. It is a 5-year renewable lease agreement, and I would be seeking board's consideration for the authority for the village president to sign into this lease agreement with Tri-River Training.
That is my motion.
I'll second it, but I need to raise a question. Mr. Chimera mentioned, I believe, 5 things related to that contract. Can we pass this and still address those issues? Because he mentioned things ought to be cleaned up.
A couple of things, I would thank Mr. Chimera for mentioning that. A couple of them are strictly grammatical, the tenant versus landlord thing. The zoning, it should not be an issue. They do not conduct any training classes in their facility. They outsource their training classes, if you will, to different locations. We do house several of the classes already at our police department for our officers and other officers throughout the state, actually. But as far as in this facility or in this area where they're going to be doing the class, it's not really an educational facility. They just run the business out of there, if you will. They don't conduct the classes in that room. And as far as the renovations, as I mentioned, they're not anticipated to make any or very minimal renovations, so it shouldn't have any impact at all.
Okay, thank you.
Clarification with our legal representation. This particular motion and 2nd, is gonna authorize the village president to sign a lease, and it doesn't have to be verbatim the way it's presented here. It does give leeway as, we have just, gone over for them to correct the grammatical error, correct?
Those are just Scribner changes. That's,
So it's, so we're fine then on voting yes and then allowing that to be corrected, right?
That's correct. I mean, these were pointed out, and I think, as the chief said, that'll be taken care of, so. The substance of this has been approved, or
Exactly.
depending on the vote, but, that's correct.
Okay, great, thank you, sir.
Are there any other comments or questions? Not, the motion was made and seconded to authorize the village president to execute a lease agreement with Tri-River Police Training Region, Inc., to lease the portion of the village's law enforcement center that was previously occupied by Westcom. Trustee Fay?
Yes.
Trustee Lamb?
Yes.
Trustee Peck? Trustee Benucci?
Yes.
Thank you, that motion carries.
Thank you. And the last item I have is the Police Department Operations Report for January. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Attorney's report,
No report this evening, thank you.
reminders?
On March 3rd is our planning commission. On March 7th is strategic planning at 8 a.m. The committee of the whole on the 9th will be canceled. March 11th will be coffee with the mayor, and our next village board meeting will be March 16th.
Mr. Mayor, before we adjourn, I would like to make an announcement or a comment. Mr. Rob Epley was with us earlier in the evening, and I should have recognized him as well as Trustee Benucci for their efforts with the YMCA Giving Gala on Saturday night. I heard nothing but praise about it, and it raised a substantial amount of money. And I know that Trustee Benucci and Mr. Epley are among several people in the community that donate hundreds of hours of time for the cause. So thank you, Margie, and Rob, thank you as well. I move we adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, that motion
If any
carries.
students need their papers signed, you can stop up too.